starting off this haircut with a metal 3.5, and I'm doing that because I want to give myself some breathing room. He's got red hair, so red hair is a little bit more transparent, and whenever you're working with red hair, blonde hair, white hair, you just want to go a little bit longer than if you were doing the same haircut with black hair because of that transparency. It's not going to be as much contrast. Getting that transition out with my Mizutanis. Big fan of Mizutani. They got authentic Japanese steel. Yeah, you got to pay a little bit extra, but you get what you pay for. And the customer service with Mizutani is amazing. If you ever need to get your shears sharpened or realigned, you just mail it out to California and it's like a $50 fix. So definitely stand behind them. When you're doing shear over comb, it's important to angle the comb a little bit backwards and not entirely flat against the fade, because if you think about the way that you would just fade someone with a clipper, you're rocking, right? So that rocking motion, what are you actually doing? You're actually following through the fade and you're not following into the fade. So if you keep your comb flat against the fade and you do shear over comb, you're going to accidentally cut into the fade. But if you angle it just slightly upwards, the curvature of the head is going to assist you in fading as you're doing shear over comb. For this haircut, I'm cutting out the crown because his hair just notoriously sticks up. So it's a quick fix. Not every client wants that, but for him, it's what I do. It just makes it a lot easier for him to maintain. So if you're gonna do something like cut out the crown, I recommend starting with a number 6 and then going about 3 inches to 2 inches in front of the cowlick on the crown, and then just bringing that clipper back towards the back of the head and mowing that down and then blending that into the bottom. You can go start with a number 6, then move an inch backward and use your number 5 or number 4, and then move another inch back, use a number 3, and then use a number 2 just to transition out the bottom into the crown area. And once you knock out all that bulk with your clippers, you can follow that up with some shear work. And you can use shear over comb, or you can just, get some subsections and lift the hair up 90 degrees, see where your guide is, and then work your way towards the front. When I'm transitioning from the crown to the front, I like using vertical subsections because it gives me an idea of the graduation that I want to create into the fringe. And then you can follow up your vertical subsections with horizontal and cross-check your work. But it's important that you be mindful of where you're grabbing that hair from, because if you're, for example, doing horizontal subsections from the fringe area to the sides of the head, you might cut that accidentally a little bit too short, because not everyone's bangs blend perfectly, especially in the front by the hairline into the sides of the head. And you don't want to take it too short, because then the corners of their fringe area are going to round up and make them look more receded. Doing some point cutting right on the fringe just so I can get some more symmetry in there, but without making it too bulk cutty. He's got super straight hair, so it's kind of hard sometimes when you're working with straight hair to get a textured fringe area. But what you can do is go in there with your blending shear and do some shear over comb and do some notching just to lighten that up a little bit. I didn't use any kind of a reference to come up with this design, but he's had me do flames before, and last time I did the flames, I did them a little bit smaller. This time I'm going for a little bit bigger of a flame just because I want it to really show. So just going in there with the corners of my trimmer and just working hair by hair and carving out my design. Flames are really easy. You just gotta figure out the direction you want them to go and try to create symmetry. I haven't finished the fade itself, but I like to get started on designs like this before I refine the entire haircut because, especially since he's got red hair, it's important that I leave myself enough room to add more contrast to the design if I want to fade it at all. Speaking of fading, shading in general is one thing that separates an intermediate from like an advanced design is the enhancements and what you do to fade and add more contrast to the design. If I end up doing this design again, I'm going to do a little bit more shading. And what I could do is right on top of the flames, I could have faded that out a little bit more with a half guard and blended that up into the top just to give the flames even more contrast. And then I could have faded the bottom out a little bit more too. But I didn't really have a lot of time because they had to go to an event. I'm using a 1.5 just to get the hair shorter on the bottom of the fade, and that's going to help me a lot when it comes time to do more detail work to make those flames a little bit more pronounced. I've got the rough design in there, but now I'm going and adding a little bit more to the outline just to make it more pronounced, and that'll make the flames pop out more. He's got red hair, so it's important to make those lines a little bit thicker so that it really pops out. You can already see the difference. Now that I've got the design popping, just getting rid of some of that hair on the bottom of the nape, and that's just gonna give it more of an artistic feel to it. And once the hair grows in, it's gonna embellish the flames even more. I'm sure that I'll get another opportunity to do this design, and next time that I do, I'm gonna use my half guard and add a little bit more shading to give some more depth and contrast to those flames. I would love to just give the background of the flames and the foreground more depth, and you can just do that with the corners of your clipper. If you could even do an open wall, but I recommend starting with like a half guard and just using the corners just to add a little bit of foreground and background to your design. Temple fades, it's the same approach that you would have for a skin fade, it's just a lot more compressed. With a temple fade, you don't want to go too high with it because then it's going to turn into a mid skin fade. Most kids hate double foil shavers. You gotta just be gentle with them. And it's not really actually always necessary either. Like it's a kid, so he doesn't really even care about that little bit of extra contrast that a double foil shaver is gonna give it the fade. But there are certain instances where I will use my double foil on a kid, like for a design or if they've got a event or like, something along those lines. But that double foil shaver is going to add another 5 to 10 minutes even potentially to your haircut. So that's something to keep in mind too. Once again, adding a little bit of white pencil to my design just to make it pop out a little bit more, give the haircut a little bit more contrast. Looking back at this though, honestly, I don't think that it even really needed it. Most of the time, less is more. All the more reason to record yourself while you're cutting hair, because then you can go over that footage and criticize yourself and see what you could improve upon. All in all, I think that it came out pretty fire. I hope you guys got something out of this video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, comment, and let me know what you want to see me do next.